Will there be a Rainbow Six Siege 2? I thought this was coming a couple years, but we got some new information that might not be so the case. Hey guys, NukemDukem here. Before we get started, I want to make an announcement that I have announced the winners of the Year 2 Season Pass in my social media, so you guys make sure you follow that for that information. On top of that, let's do another giveaway, a different type. How about a $50 Steam card where you can buy anything with it of your choosing in the description below. Usually a game sequel or prequel is determined on how well the game does and determines on many other factors if they can build upon the success. And it takes around 3 to 5 years in a development cycle depending on the developer and the publishers who make that game. Before we can jump into Siege, it's best to look at the history of the Rainbow Six franchise. Rainbow Six Vegas 2 came out in 2008. And then in 2011, we got the announcement of Rainbow Six Patriots, which focused on a single-player experience for previous gen console on the PS3 and Xbox 360. However, in 2014, it was announced that it was canceled. And according to IGN's reporting from Oliver Courtier, a technical artist from Ubisoft, saying that the game didn't feel like next gen that they were targeting, and it felt that they were making the game and it was not up to par with what next gen considered to be, which is PS4 and Xbox One. So they had to go back completely to drawing boards, and they didn't really take any much of Patriots with Siege. Usually a video game success is determined by the first week of sales, and within the first month of determine if it was a major flop or major success of a brand new product. The game unfortunately did not sell too well within its first month, and several articles came out that it deserved better and it was dangerously close to become a major failure. According to UK charts, within the first week only sold around 76,000 units. This was an article posted in IGN back in January 14, 2016 of their source, the NPD Group, releasing the top 10 selling games for the month of December of 2015. As you can see, Call of Duty and Star Wars Battlefront came up on top in November. That's when it got released. But what's interesting is Madden NFL 16 came out in August of that year, and Grand Theft Auto came out in 2013, re-released on the PS4, Xbox One on 2014, and then PC version 2015. So a 2-year-old game was still beating out a hot new title that just came out. Assassin's Creed Syndicate came out in October of that year as well. On top of the initial poor sales, the launch of the game was extremely buggy. The server was unstable. There was a lot of connection issues, kill cam issues, cheating issues in the PC, and many more. For all these issues, several players thought the game would eventually die off, and the player base would slowly decline and the game would be gone within sometime in March. On top of that, the initial first DLC, Black Ice, was delayed from January to February. With all this taken into consideration, it seemed highly unlikely that there will be a sequel to a Rainbow Six Siege franchise with everything working against it. With all this said and everything working against the game and the franchise, it seemed highly unlikely we'll see a sequel, and this was probably doomed for the franchise for a long time before some type of reboot would ever come. So at this point, it seemed like Ubisoft just had to support the game for 1 year since they made that announcement, and to PC Season Pass owners, and most likely they wouldn't create new content for game after year 1 and just keep the servers stable. After a month and a half release, the game server started stabilizing and a lot of the bugs were being patched constantly, and the server matchmaking was slightly getting better. Only issue was the hacking. But Black Ice was starting to get a lot of traction of the game, and then players started surging. As time grew on, Rainbow Six Siege became a sleeper hit among fans, and the game continued grows to this day. Around Black Ice, the game got more live active users, and Dustline dropped off a little, but Skull Rain was when Ubisoft saw a huge surge in Rainbow Six Siege players and sales. They had the Xbox One finals in Burbank, and they had over 40,000 live viewers looking for the new content, and that's when I started seeing that Operation Skull Rain was when I had a lot more viewers and subscribers growing. So they had the most active users they ever had in history on their Xbox One and PC. Granted, it was a free-to-play weekend, usually what they do for most DLCs they have, but it still means more sales and more active player base than they had previously. A lot of people were wondering what could cause such random growth in this game when it seemed like it was dying off. Well, I think it was multiple factors. Ubisoft kept working on the game, patching it up, try to stabilize everything, and provide new fresh content. I saw the biggest turnaround when they announced a mid-season reinforcement in Operation Skull Rain, where they focus on the health of the game by fixing the PC community by inserting BattleEye, banning all these hackers where they can play a fair, legitimate game. The esports scene was growing, and people were just excited for a fresh pace of a new shooter. For several years, gamers were conditioned and promoted and marketed to play a fast-paced first-person shooter where it's about running, gunning, kill streak rewards, and your life did not matter. Teamwork didn't really matter. It was all about you, your personal self, of how well you can do. And a couple years before this, Counter-Strike Global Offensive was growing pretty big, and as well as the esports competitive scene, gamers were more enjoying to see a teamwork-based strategic game where it focuses on skills and teamwork. And Rainbow Six Siege was like Counter-Strike, but on steroids, where operators are unique and the gameplay is different, and it was more modern compared to Global Offensive, which is a very old game, came back from a mod of Half-Life 1. So this is what I think was a sleeper hit. That first off, when the game first came out, people were so used to fast pace, they weren't really ready for one life tactical shooter. And over time, the game started growing word of mouth, and people started playing the game more and got used to it. And then it was just marketed better, and the game kept growing. The weekend before the release of the Spanish operators, Operation Velvet Shell, Ubisoft of course did another free-to-play weekend on all platforms, and again it reached an all-time player high on all platforms. Now you can say, Nukem, it was free-to-play, of course, be all-time high, but they did that with Skull Rain, Red Crow, and Velvet Shell, and it still keeps breaking records on all platforms every time Ubisoft does a new DLC release. And then all player high equals more sales, which equals more people buying the game, and which increase server instability. With Velvet Shell just recently got released, it feels like it was back to when the game first launched and the servers were extremely unstable, matchmaking issues. But that's a good problem to have, that the game is selling so well that the servers cannot keep up with it. Now that we know that Ubisoft did a year 2 support and the game's at all-time high, and everything's going well for Rainbow Six Siege, you would say, of course there's going to be a Rainbow Six Siege year 2. Well, that might not be the case with the recent interview. With a recent PC Gamer article interview done with the creative director of Rainbow Six Siege, Xavier Marquez, it seems some of the takeaways that Ubisoft may focus more on creating and supporting game long term than just continue pushing a game out every 3 to 5 years of the franchise. Currently, it seems the creative director wants to approach a game more of a MOBA DNA style, where it aims to have around 50 operators to possibly up to 100, and they won't have new game modes, but these new operators will change the way the game meta plays out and offering a new different style of approach to the game. Several other shooter games has different modes. When asked about this, he says, the map can be different, the operators can be different, but we need something static, and that is Siege mode. Siege is the center of everything. This goes back to the original concept of design of the game, where there's one attacker and defender, and this is what the core of Siege is, and he doesn't want to dilute the game by splitting the player base with different modes, but having new operators, which changes the way the game is being played. This begs the question, would there be too many operators and dilute the game? Since there's already currently 30, 6 more on the way, and if you're aiming around 50, wouldn't each operator would no longer be unique and do similar things? Marquise responded by saying this. That was one of the questions that was asked by management here. Weren't we going to be doing the same operators over and over again? Remy says. But the idea is that you actually want enough operators so you each pick you have a choice. Thermite for a long time was not a choice. Everyone had to pick him in a team because he was the only one who could breach into reinforced wall. Introducing Habana, all of a sudden, the players could perform that task with a choice. At that moment, every choice is a tough choice for the player and not an obvious one. To come to that moment, you need a minimum of 50. When we have 50, that's when the game is at its peak in terms of strategy. Looking at MOBAs, those games have from 80 to 100 characters, and it still works. This was an interesting interview with the creative director. So we have 50 operators, that means 4 years of content, which means there will be a year 4 if this goes with his current vision. Overall, I sort of agree. The game is fine. The game is still fresh, and I think new operators and map changes the meta, and we don't need a new game. If we have a Rainbow Six Siege 2, then you will have half the people playing with the regular one and another half playing Rainbow Six Siege Year 2. Now, I do think there will be a Rainbow Six Siege 2, since I feel like, you eventually need a sequel, and that would come around year 5 or 6 after they have 50 operators. I feel after 50 it feels a little bit too diluted, and they have to come up with something fresh, a whole new type of style gameplay, or refine it, a new engine just to make everything run smoother, works better with Viewplay. So I do think in another 3 to 4 years we will have a Siege 2 for the Rainbow Six franchise. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you guys do enjoy, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and the bell button to be notified for all Rainbow Six Siege news. And if you guys want the $50 Steam gift card, it's in the description. All right, you guys have a good one. Bye.